Hello everybody and welcome to the Prop Spotter channel. It's 8:30 p.m. on the 9th of September 2025. I've been debating a little bit about a potential investment opportunity in Australia for an investment property, and I've decided I want to go visit on site, and I'm going to take you guys with me. So I'll catch you guys tomorrow morning.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. The time now is 5 a.m. We're up, we're dressed, and we're in the air today. We're flying to Hobart to check out houses down there. Hobart's a really interesting place. Population size about 250,000. Seventh largest capital in the world. Ladies and gentlemen, we're now at the airport, set to take off in the next half an hour. Today we're headed to Hobart. Hobart's been on my mind for a while. It's one of the few places in Australia where you can still actually get a 5+% yield, but be in a capital city. Hobart's got a population of 250,000, the same as Townsville. Just had a boom recently. There's been a redevelopment of the local hospital. There's been a lot of infrastructure going on, but more importantly, the vacancy rates in Hobart are dropping to close to 0%. So there's this particular suburb we're going to look at today in Hobart. It's 10 minutes outside of the CBD. Median price of that suburb is sitting at around the $600,000 mark with a 5% yield and an almost zero vacancy rate. So follow me as we go along and check that out. Top of the morning, ladies and gentlemen. It is 8:30 a.m. and we are now in Hobart. Rental car collected. First stop today, Glenorchy. We're looking at 6 different houses in Glenorchy. I'm going to take you through each one of them, show you what it's all about, talk about the yields, talk about the property, talk about the areas in general, and my considerations and why I'm looking in Glenorchy. So let's get this party started. I'm going to start driving now and touch base with you in a minute. Ladies and gentlemen, we're at our first house of the day. 1,300 square meter block in Glenorchy, Tasmania, selling for around $600,000 to $650,000 and is currently rented for $570 a week. The land size is an interesting one because the land size allows you to do many things with the property. You can go and renovate it. You can go and build a strata unit. You can go do a whole bunch of stuff with it. So let's go have a look and I'll get back to you shortly. We're looking here at 2 Anfield Street, off-market property, quite beautiful. It's on a corner block. All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's now 11 a.m. We've been through 2 houses so far in Glenorchy, Hobart. A few things to talk about. So the first house, 1,300 square meters, 5-row house, 3 bedrooms with a big shed out the back and probably about 800 square meters of usable land to build another unit or a granny flat or subdivide on. Driveway access was great. That particular house had a brand new formplex or cladding put on top of it and a brand new roof as well. So from a maintenance perspective, everything was done and well looked after. Location was in the quieter side of Glenorchy, so very, very deep into the suburb, far from any of the infrastructure, but the streets were quiet, the birds were chirping, everything about it was great. The second house, I'm at it right now. There it is there. The total opposite. So the house was not in as great a condition, livable, but nothing special about it, but the land. Now, that's what we invest in property for, the land. The land is in a very, very solid position. It's opposite the local football field. The State Association of Soccer, is also close by. And the local shopping centre in Glenorchy Main Strip is a 5-minute walk away. From a location perspective, that cannot be beaten. The house on the inside was a little bit run down. It had an outdoor toilet. It had a bath. It was just an old house from, the early 1900s that had been built on top of and extended and, in many different ways. It had a sunroom that had no internal access, so you could only walk outside the house and enter the sunroom. But other than that, it was a solid house. The first house is currently renting for $570 a week and the vendors are asking $650,000. The second house would get a rental appraisal of about $540 and the owners are asking $565. So on a yield perspective, the second house is better than the first. However, the second house does need a little bit of work. So that's where we're at as of 11 o'clock. We've got a bit of a lunch break now. I'll take some scenic shots of the local Glenorchy area. I'll drive around, show you guys more of Glenorchy, and then we can go from there. Catch you soon. We're standing here at the Bay of Glenorchy where there's a big patch of empty land behind me. This land has been earmarked for development. They plan to turn it into a dining dining and shopping precinct here in Glenorchy, $300 million project. Discussions are in play. Right behind me, we've got beautiful mountains. This is right here in Glenorchy, guys. And then the My State Bank Arena in the background. So plenty popping off in Glenorchy right now, plenty of things happening. I was just in the CBD a few moments ago. There are shopping centres getting renovated. Local pools are having a renovation. The fields are having a renovation. So the Glenorchy Council is investing a lot into the local area. And that's one of the driving factors behind my decision to come and have a look at Glenorchy. Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, standing in the My State Bank Arena here in Glenorchy, I'm seeing a lot of potential in Hobart and Glenorchy itself. I mean, where else can you find a capital city where you can still get 5+% yields on property with a very low vacancy rate? These areas are running out. There was a particular property I was just looking at, 51 Pitcairn Street, and I spoke to the agent. Chris just came out of his office. Chris sold that property in under a week. He had 7 offers, one of them collapsed, and he's just gone on to the next one, fetching a record price of $615,500 for his client. That was a brick house on 700 plus square meters of land. So Glenorchy prices are moving. They're moving relatively quickly. And I think by the end of the year, the window is going to elapse for you to be able to get into this market. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been an eventful afternoon. So after lunch, we checked out a property in Norman Circle. That property was fibro, rented to some tenants. 797 square meters of land. Owners were asking $625,000 or over that. They purchased the house for $675,000 back in 2022. So you can tell that the property is Property values here have taken a bit of a nosedive. They were currently renting it out for $520 a week. Condition on the inside was average. Wish I could show you the photos, but there were tenants in there, so I wanted to respect their privacy. After that, we went to a property on Fleming Street. That property was even worse. Rented out to 4 construction workers, renting at $690 a week. Owner was asking $650, but the house was in a terrible state. There was mold in a bedroom, there was mold in the bathroom. The house was just not pleasant. It was built in fibro. Really not looked after overall. And while that's not the main deciding factor for a good investment, it is a deciding factor for how much maintenance you're going to have to do once you get the property and ongoing as well. Post that, we took a drive and went to One Story Place, Glenorchy. That's a property that was sold for $483,000 in 2022, but since then has had a $40,000 underpinning job, a $25,000 new bathroom, and a $20,000 new kitchen, right? So over 100 grand, close to 100 grand of work spent on it, and it's on the market for $620,000, renting at $600 a week to 3 shift workers. The theme here that I'm seeing is Glenorchy has got a bit of a migrant workforce or a Australian family renter workforce. Fairly middle class. The local shopping centre Northgate has a Woolworths, a TK Maxx, a Coles, a couple other stores as well. Huge migration here into Tasmania. There appears to be, I believe, some visa concessions for those migrants living in Tasmania as opposed to other states. Plenty of opportunities abound, plenty of great views. We're now going to drive through some of the rougher streets and go beyond Glenorchy. Let's take a drive down to Bridgewater, down to Claremont as I begin to head for the airport and wrap it up. Thank you all for being with me. Come with me. There was a good property that we saw. There's a property that we're likely to make an offer on. Let's see how we go. We're driving through Gage Brook now, one of the more tougher suburbs in Hobart. If we've got sufficient time, we'll go through Bridgewater as well. Let's go for the drive. All right, so Gage Brook located on the other side of Glenorchy, the other side of the water, the other side of the coast. Generally known as a more rougher area. Look, am I seeing burnt out houses? No. Am I seeing housing commission? Most certainly yes. I'm taking you on the run with me here through Gage Brook. Relatively small, isolated satellite suburb. Probably got about 2,000 houses in it. Nothing too extravagant, I think would be a fair call. Container house there. Don't know what this one place thing is, but there is a bit of a container house on it. Council doing some good work, putting in some new facilities. Looks like a cycle path. Nice little pavement. Here's an Eshe walking through the streets. Eshe lad. There you go. You can see the demographic shift. You're not going to see many migrants here. You're going to see more low socioeconomic families in this area. Cars on a tow truck, that sort of stuff. Still beautiful, solid brick houses. Most of them still owned by a housing commission, but some do come up from sale from time to time. This street looks like a good one to take a drive down through. There you go, mothers with babies, basic cars, nothing flash. People living week by week out here in Gage Brook. Now, there may be some merit in going through to Bridgewater and doing the same thing. Yeah, definitely housing commission these 3 units without a doubt. Oh, looks like I've hit a dead end. A couple of people just staring at me like I'm going to shoot them up. The reality is I've got no time for that. We're here to buy properties, not fight people. The bus services to Gage Brook often get disrupted because people throw rocks at the buses, and so there have been time where bus services to Gage Brook and Bridgewater have been cancelled months at a time. Lucky for us, Gage Brook is 20 minutes away from Glenorchy, so we're in safe hands there. The folk from Gage Brook aren't really coming down to Glenorchy because A, they'd have to drive. Well, some of them do drive, but B, they'd also need a direct bus, which they do not have, or maybe they do. So that's Gage Brook. Opposite Gage Brook is actually a suburb called Herdsman's Cove. Much newer builds there, townhouses and the like, with views to the water. The only difference between them, a main road and a roundabout. We won't have time to drive through drive through Herdsman Cove because I've got a soft spot for the ghettos, so we'll be looking at those instead. All right, so on to Bridgewater we go, ladies and gentlemen. That was just a quick suburb tour of Gage Brook. Covered a couple of streets, which should be enough for us. Next one up, Bridgewater. And so from a price point perspective, Glenorchy probably commands about $100,000 more than houses in Gage Brook and Bridgewater do when they come up for sale. But as you can see, the difference between them, the difference between the potential tenants, that stuff's all night and day. Bridgewater, 4 kilometers. So follow me as we go along to Bridgewater. Yep, so on the left-hand side, you're seeing Herdsman Cove, which I told you about. Newer houses, newer stock. We're crossing a bridge, so I think this might be Bridgewater, but we'll see. Here's a kid on a dirt bike. Pretty common sight in Bridgewater, as you probably saw on Spanion's videos if you watch Spanion stuff. But you can start to see how the infrastructure starts to dwindle out, right? We're driving through rural areas. We probably drove 20 minutes to get to Gagebrook. We're driving another 5 to 7 minutes to get to Bridgewater. So whatever infrastructure was in Hobart or in Glenorchy that was 10 minutes away from the CBD, now getting sparser and sparser. I can see a Woolworths out of the corner of my eye to the left, but that's not fun enough. So let's go to the right and drive through Bridgewater proper, shall we? St. Paul's Catholic School. Oh, the houses here look pretty reasonable. Usual shopping trolley, nothing to be afraid of. That's just the cul-de-sac. I want to turn left into that. And here's just the cul-de-sac again. Look, the houses in Gagebrook definitely looked a little bit worse for wear compared to here in Bridgewater, but maybe we're just getting started. Hungry Jack's up the road. Nothing wrong with a good old Hungry Jack's. Yep, so a bunch of housing commission units to our left that we just drove past. More housing commission units. We can also see that, here in the demographic, people's normal cars are sort of quite old. They're 15, 20 years old. I've seen 3 or 4 Holden Commodores in the last 30 seconds alone. I see one on practically every driveway on the right-hand side that we just passed. More housing stock around here. It's crazy that you still get water views in Tasmania though. Absolutely insane. Blows my mind. But, one thing's for sure, you're not seeing BMWs or Audis or Mercedes-Benzes out here in Bridgewater or Gagebrook. And probably not even Glenorchy for that matter. I mean, I saw 1 or 2 throughout the day today, and that left me pleasantly surprised. Just taking a right turn here onto Maxwell Drive. But look at that view, ladies and gentlemen. One of the roughest suburbs out here in Hobart. But no worries. You'll get yourself some water views. Play it right, you may even get, I don't even know what this is, a waterfront house or units. Yeah, ain't that great. And so that probably wraps up the short drive of Bridgewater. It's time, as you can see, it's starting to get dark. Time to start heading back to Sydney. Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a pleasant trip here. I've been pleasantly surprised with Hobart. I think there's lots of action, lots of migration, lots of work to sustain that migration and a growing population. Although, acknowledge that it's not as fast growing as Sydney, Melbourne and Brisbane, but it is still a place for good yields, good property and good tenants. Have a great day.